Hello, BookTube. It's Wednesday, and that's New Comics Day. That's when comic book fans flock to their LCS, their local comic shop, and buy the latest issues, or make a dent in their pull list, or simply page through things that they don't have any intention of buying. And I don't really do that anymore. I was a fan of New Comics Wednesday forever, but I don't really do that anymore. I don't really buy single issues of comics anymore. Instead, I concentrate my attention on reprints, paperback and hardcover reprints. And it's lucky timing industry-wise, because the comic book industry also has begun to concentrate on reprints, paperback and hardcover, including reprints of stuff that I would never have expected would ever get reprinted. And this week was no exception. There was a reprint this week that I gobbled up right away. It's this, The Adventures of Captain America, a big paperback from Marvel Comics that reprints not only the Sunday Comics Captain America adventures that were written, drawn, colored, inked, everything by Carl Kessel, but also the main attraction, the front half of the book, is a 4-issue miniseries that was written by Fabian Nicienza and drawn by Kevin Maguire back in the early 90s, with cinematic detail, granular detail, retelling the origin story of Captain America, which I'm assuming most of you are familiar with. I wouldn't have assumed that before the fantastic movie, but the recent Marvel movie from a few years ago that tells Captain America's origin story gives a very faithful version of the bare bones of that story. A weedy little kid from New York who's all on fire with patriotism, wants to get in the war against the Nazis, but flunks out of joining the army and is chosen for an experimental procedure that transforms him into a human dynamo, into the absolute perfection. The standard line, the line that has usually been used with Captain America, is the ultimate physical perfection of a human being. One of the greatest reference works of modern time, the official handbook to the Marvel Universe, makes it pretty clear in the long entry on Captain America that the experiment that transformed young Steve Rogers into Captain America did a lot more than just make him a perfect human. We live in an age of absolute, incredible human athletics, and there have been quite a few great examples in the past as well. We know pretty much what a perfect human can do, and Captain America can do a lot more than that. And according to the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, the parameters there make him more than human. He can lift 800 pounds. His body doesn't generate waste material on the cellular level in the way that a normal body does, so he almost never gets tired. Recovers from injury, is extremely resistant to infection and disease. And Marvel Comics writers, since Captain America's appearance in 1940, have just been adding to that. They have added to that constantly, or played around with that a little. A storyline just a few years ago in Captain America had him transported to an alien dimension where he has to fight for survival for a long time. And he doesn't age. And it's just routinely written off at the end of the storyline as another unexpected benefit of the serum that he was given when he was a kid. But for the most part, when Marvel writers wrote about Captain America, they wrote his origin very quickly. And so did Stan Lee when it came time for him to rewrite, to revive the work. Captain America was created by Jack Kirby and Joe Simon, but Stan Lee latched onto the character in his own way 20 years later, and even he does a very cinematic job of telling the origin about this young man who's brought to a secluded location, meets a bunch of people who are involved in a secret government operation to create a super soldier, is transformed into that super soldier at exactly the moment in which a Nazi sleeper agent kills the scientist who transformed him, thereby taking all of the precious information with him so that the process can never be duplicated. It's a mighty effective moment, but it leaves a lot out. The typical Captain America origin story sequence is usually 4 panels long, and it leaves a lot out. Because there's a lot more to Captain America than how Steve Rogers went from a 98-pound weakling to 350 pounds of solid muscle. There's the training, there's the skill, there's the weapons, conditioning and whatnot. We have to learn. We never really learn in those early versions of Captain America's origin how he became Captain America, except in the raw physical sense of the undertaking. And in this series, especially in the first volume is amazingly cinematic. We learn all the details of the project that made him Captain America. And I really liked it when it first came out, but I had a complaint about it. Which, oddly enough, Ralph Macchio, in his introduction to this volume, actually touches on. One of the signature things about Captain America, one of the reasons you buy a Captain America issue, is for the action sequences. The amazing thing about Captain America is that it has always been that he brings out the best in his writers and artists to make action sequences that just jump off the page. I was amazed to see that transfer to the big screen. Where even in the presence of beings with gigantic, energy-wielding cosmic powers, Chris Evans as Captain America is pretty magnetic. It's pretty hard to take your eye off him, even in a crowd scene. And my main complaint about these when I first read these chapters, was that the big action sequences don't happen often enough. I remember being dissatisfied by that. But I reread these issues when I got this volume today, and boy, oh boy, they have a lot of stuff going on in them that I was too impatient to pay proper attention to when I first read them. So I don't know where my original issues are, and now I'm not going to bother, because I have this, and it was an absolute delight to reread, and I know that I'm going to want to reread it again. It's Fabian Nicienza writing really well, knowingly taking a big swing at creating the definitive origin sequence for Captain America and the definitive early adventures against the Red Skull and Hitler and whatnot. And boy, oh boy, does it work perfectly. So this is a perfect example of why I've started concentrating on reprints and whatnot, because I know that they're not a waste. Whereas, like for instance, when I was at the comic shop today, I saw the latest issue of The Flash, which kind of sort of looked interesting, and also Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, number 300. Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man being the title of a spin-off title to The Amazing Spider-Man that happened ages ago. And I remember buying that first issue and thinking, what are you doing? What do you mean? There are going to be 2 Spider-Man volumes? Two Spider-Man titles ongoing every month? Now, that's absolutely commonplace. But at the time, it felt strange for it to happen at Marvel. And both of those issues were there on the stand, and I looked at them. I didn't stand there and flip through them. That's kind of a bugaboo of mine. But I did look at them, and I did think about it, and I thought, no. You'll flip through it, you'll see a couple of panels that you like, or maybe none, and then you'll be done. And that'll be it. It's a total waste of money. So I didn't do it. Instead, what I want to do is concentrate on volumes like this one. Well, I loved rereading it, and now I can just put it on my shelf. I don't have to put it in a long box or have it flop around and break loose from its staples. I can just put it on a shelf and reread it when I want to. I would really like it. What I mentioned, those of you who aren't, I don't imagine that anybody who's not familiar with comic books is watching this video, but if you are, when I mentioned pull list, that's a process that comic shops do, where if you agree to buy a certain number of ongoing monthly titles every week, then you get a discount, and the shop pulls them aside for you and puts them in a slot under your name. And I have had comic shops in Southern California and in Texas and in Iowa who were willing to do a variation on that for me, especially latterly, especially in later years when the comic book industry really started to boom for older readers who weren't kids counting their pennies and might buy a bigger, more expensive thing. With those shops, I said to the proprietor, okay, I'm not really regular about monthly issues, but I will regularly buy the bigger ticket items that come out almost every week. So if you have $1 minimum in order to float a pull list. I bet I will make it. It just won't be with these issues. Can we make a deal? Can we work that out? And most of the comic shop people that I have asked that to have agreed. Obviously, since they're making money on the deal. They're making a lot more money than they are from a normal pull list. And I haven't yet approached any comic shop here in Boston or across the river in Cambridge about doing that. But I really should. But anyway, in the meantime, that's my Comic Book Wednesday for today. This is the second week in a row where I'm dealing with one of the trinity, the so-called trinity of Marvel Comics. In each of the two superhero comics has a core trinity of characters. In DC, it's Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman. And in Marvel, it's Captain America, the Submariner, and the Human Torch. And you might not think that. You might think with Marvel, no, it's you know, Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor, or Captain America, Spider-Man, and Wolverine, or whatever. But no, the founding trilogy of Marvel Comics, before it even was Marvel Comics, was Captain America, the Submariner, and the Human Torch. The original Human Torch. Not Johnny Storm from the Fantastic Four, but an android with the same powers. And I think that World War II era trinity is absolutely fascinating. And what I wouldn't give if next week was something about the Human Torch, the one member of the Trinity we haven't covered yet, but it won't be, because Marvel's record with Captain America is fantastic. They've always loved him. He's always been a marquee character. Marvel's record with the Submariner, as we mentioned last week, is fantastic. Writers have always engaged him in complex ways. He's always been there, sometimes starring in his own book, sometimes, you know, garnering the most fan mail from somebody else's book, but not the Human Torch. Now, the character is unceremoniously killed off by two-bit gangsters, then revived, then goes into a coma again, then we're told he's made into the Vision, the android who becomes a member of the Avengers, then much, much later we're told, no, he wasn't made into the Vision's his own android. The Human Torch is another android, and he's been moldering in a graveyard this whole time, and all you have to do is reactivate him. And he does, and he becomes a hero, and then dies, and then undies, and then dies again, and then undies again. Ridiculous. A ridiculous, ham-handed patchwork history for this great character, one of the three characters to launch Marvel Comics. I would love it if that were fixed, but it's not going to be. So I think next week we'll probably be dealing with something else. We'll probably be moving on away from World War II. But in the meantime, if you're a Captain America fan and you are too young to remember this original miniseries from the early 1990s, and you see this volume, if you're a Captain America fan, you're going to want to add this to your library. And that's it. That's it for now. I'm going to go back to books now. Worry not. I'll be back soon. Thank you, BookTube.